I'm not going to do an intro for this one because I feel a little bit too distraught to actually set myself up properly. This one's very, very impromptu. And it's mainly about what happened today, but it's overall about what has been happening over the course of this year, especially within the past couple of months. So, allow me to preface by saying that I know this isn't a channel strictly based off of political stuff, but I will say, first off, I do reside with the Democratic Public Party. Sorry, I will be messing up my speech a little bit as I am still kind of, like I said, distraught. But I do reside with the Democratic Party. And if that's instantly a turn off, or if that's a deal breaker or a no-go, I completely respect that. But what I would like to discuss right now is let me start off with what happened today. Now, regardless of what side of the political spectrum you are affiliated with, no matter what, I will never condone what has happened today. As of today, in Utah, at the University of Utah, Charlie Kirk was assassinated. And I have had the absolute displeasure of seeing the footage. And I will say, as much as I disagree with him, as much as I did not agree with majority of his points that he's made and his views, as much as I think he was a negative being, I will never celebrate or condone the actions that have occurred today. Do I think he was a very negative and dislikable person? Yes. Because to me, especially as a democratic being, I highly disliked his takes. I highly disliked his points, his perspective, his angle on everything, and his approach on everything. Whether it be in debates, whether it be in public speakings, whether it be in any political event. As much as I disagreed, disliked, and found myself feeling infuriated with some of the stuff that he said, I truly do not believe that what he has said warranted him getting assassinated. Because I truly believe that if he was considerably a bad person politically, then there should have been efforts to deplatform him. It should never get to this point where we choose violence. Violence in a case like this is not the answer. And I highly disagree with what happened to him today. Because as far as my knowledge goes, and I think a lot of us can agree, regardless if you're liberal, democratic, or conservative, or Republican, regardless of where you lie on that spectrum, even third party, I think we all can agree that he wasn't an actual physical harm to society. Yes, he was projecting somewhat harmful ideals and negative ideals, but he did not do any sort of act of terrorism. He did not do any physical crime. He hasn't even done anything that would have warranted him getting jailed. At most, he did what? Spread hate speech? That's a figure that you can turn away, that you can willingly turn away. He did not deserve what happened today. As much as I disliked him as a person, what happened to him today is unforgivable. It is not something to praise. It is not something to celebrate. It is not something to dance with joy. Because on this day, we've lost a human being. And to those closest to him, they lost a friend, they've lost a father, they've lost a husband, they've lost a coworker. This is another human life. Now, I will not get into my takes on our current president, Donald Trump. That will either be on a different platform somewhere else or just never mentioned, as it doesn't carry relevancy unless it is asked and it's within a civil discussion. But as of right now, I am addressing a different matter. And I will say, as far as what I've witnessed, people are already instantly accusing the left of this. I even saw someone on TikTok recently. I can't remember the username off the top of my head, but it's a now pretty well-known trans TikToker who has expressed thoughts and theory that he might even be turned into a martyr, and that this might be a driving force to even further implement hate towards the left. And to a extent, I do agree. I do feel like that this will be a turning point and that this will create more hate towards the left. But I feel like in a matter like this, we shouldn't be pointing fingers as to which party did it. Because at the end of the day, it was a human being that does not properly reside on either side. Because from the very beginning, neither side of the political spectrum started off as this one's violent, this one's not. When it comes to mankind, when it comes to our own country, when it comes to our own citizens, citizen v. citizen. No political party has ever explicitly stated that they are on the side of citizen v. citizen harm as a goal. That has never been explicitly stated. So therefore, I would like to completely eradicate the idea that this was either party's doing of his outcome, of his demise. Instead, let's look at it as a wretched, ugly being who had nothing better in their life but to cause harm and demise because their own life wasn't leading anywhere better. Because they'd much rather take their rage out on a person that only spoke and that they didn't know how to handle that rage. And another thing too that I would like to address, and this will be kind of the overall motif as to what I'm discussing here. I know that recently the US government is issuing a process to ban transgendered beings from owning firearms. And this is going to segue into the next topic. Because within my home state, Minnesota, earlier this month, there was a shooting that happened at a Catholic church. This was the beginning of their school year within a Catholic church. And as to those that are within the state or those that have tuned in from outside the state, you would know the exact church. The exact one is Annunciation Catholic Church. Those kids and those adults were attending the first week, and this was during Mass. As Mayor Jacob Fry has said, this is not a time to say thoughts and prayers because those kids were praying. The fact that it took that shooting for the government to finally stand up and say, let's do something against firearms, but yet still it's not even a proper step. Why are we now doing something the second a transgendered being has hold of a firearm. Because prior to that shooting, there was other cases of shootings that happened across Minnesota, specifically around Minneapolis. And on top of that, for the past few years of other mass shootings, now is a time that we start to try to make something against firearm owning, and it's against transgender people. When statistics state, and I'm sure you guys can do one quick Google search of this too, statistics state that majority of mass shootings have been hosted by cisgendered beings. There is a higher percentage of males, cisgendered males, than there is cisgendered females. And it's an even lower percentage of those that fall under the transgender umbrella. Why is it that now we choose to do something about firearms, and aside, not doing it on a general scope, but instead we do it on a more focused scope on a minority group? I can almost guarantee you that this shooter that has assassinated Charlie Kirk most likely is a cisgendered being. And if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. But just like the other ones, the other attempts on Trump, when those people are identified as cisgendered beings, and yet now is a time that we do something about it. So let's just say this, right? Okay, so it gets passed, yeah? So that stops transgender people. What does that do amongst the rest of the populace that may or may not have an itchy trigger finger? What does that do to the rest of America? Now, I know I am a pretty small creator, but I feel for a person that has a platform nonetheless, it is only vital that I at least make an attempt to get a message out there. And I highly encourage other creators, whether small or big, to also utilize their platform to speak on something like this. Today is a day where I'm sure we all can agree, or at least a majority, I can only hope, that it doesn't matter what your identity is. It doesn't matter what gender identity you are. It doesn't matter what race you are, what nationality you are, what religious background you have. It doesn't matter. What matters is that we need to do something about gun control, and we need to take action as soon as possible. Now, I would share some of my ideas on here as to how we can go about that, but I feel it would probably be better if I make a separate channel geared towards this stuff, because I do have a lot of ideas, and generating these ideas also has kind of given me motivation for the future to try for council, at least locally. Start there and then build my way up. Because I, amongst other Americans, are tired of seeing what is going on across the country. If there is a time to act, now is that time. If you have listened to all of this, if you have viewed all of it, if you prefer to create discussion from this, I highly appreciate it. And by all means, share this across any social media platform you can. Share this amongst friends, amongst family, amongst loved ones. As I feel it is a time for all of us Americans to gather together and finally take action. Stand up for what is right. Because what isn't right is the fact that a lot of these people have a hold of firearms. And not just any firearms, very, very harmful ones. We're talking rifles, we're talking SMGs, we're talking handguns of high calibers There should be no reason as to why an American has a high calibered weapon as a case of self-defense. And the fact that the past couple of shootings, the rounds found there are very highly powerful rounds. This is not okay. We need to actually make a step in the right direction. Not just shimmy, not just slightly shift over. We need to actually step forward. Once and for all. Because as I said before, I, amongst many Americans, are tired of seeing what's going on amongst this country. The treatment of certain nationalities, the treatment of certain races, religious backgrounds, gender identities, the treatment of firearm ownership. There's so many things that have gone wrong within the 100+ days that have passed by. We need to make the rest of it better. We need to actually create positive effect. Now is not a time, and this is me addressing the government mainly, but now is not the time to take action on things from a personal standpoint. No more personal agendas. Now is a time to take action amongst the American people. Stand with the American people, not for or against them.